hearing aid, please turn your aid to T. Could everyone turn their mobiles to silence? And the last bit of that is, if you're using Wi-Fi, GLA guest is the Wi-Fi signal in here, and there's no password needed. I think that covers all housekeeping instead of looking around. Right. So thank you so much for coming. So many different groups here, so many providers, charities, companies, social action groups. It's really excellent to see you here. This is a culmination of a long process for many of us, but it's also the starting point for what comes next. The journey to get here is one that, as far as I'm conscious of, but of course it's been happening across London 5 or 6 years ago. I'm looking at what the boroughs are doing, and I'm just struck by the difference in success rates between the sorts of partnerships created at borough levels, facilitated by London boroughs, to support people into work who have particular difficulties in getting to work. The difference between those local partnerships and national programmes. And it seems obvious that we ought to be investing in the version that works, the local programmes. And yet, those who had the resources saw the world in a very different way, a bit like that was the message that we were getting in 2010. So we've been pushing at this for a long time, and it seemed obvious that it needed to be pushed at and that something should be achieved. And I've got to say, for a lot of my staff, and I know for a lot of the people working in sub-regions and individual boroughs, it's felt like different days on the Western Front. You know, you gain 10 yards, cost of X, and then you go back another 15 yards. But we're here. A series of processes have taken those individual projects, things like Wandsworth Work Right, work with people with physical and mental health issues, and had 33% success rates in getting them into sustainable jobs, as compared to the sort of the work programme in its work with people on the ESA, 3.5%, sometimes statistically less than what one would assume doing nothing should have delivered. Those programmes built up. In 2014, all the boroughs came together and worked with the then Mayor to pitch into government a growth deal for London. We managed to get ourselves onto that stage. It wasn't meant to be for London, and in that we included a set of programmes to support people with the greatest need for help, to help them become work ready. And we managed to achieve that. We got 2 sub-regional groups created out of that, one in central London and one led by the West London Lions, fortuitously or perceptively focusing on the interaction, the overlap with health-related issues, and that stood us in good stead as we've developed over the years. 2015, we put in a wider proposition and again got some support. When you're dealing with Whitehall, you can win support in one part of the forest, only to discover that they're burning the forest in another part of the forest. So these things take time, but we've moved forward. And the autumn statement in last November actually began to lock us in properly to this project and to bring us to today with you here. And our opportunity, along with Greater Manchester, to devise something that we think is inherently better and to drive an opportunity that's inherently more effective to support Londoners who need our help to get into work and to get more control over their own lives. This is a really important culmination of several years of work by many, many people across London. And of course that's the thing about dealing with complex needs and complex services. There are always partnerships, and it's our ability to work effectively in partnerships that's a core part of the success we have generated and the success I hope that we together will generate over the next 5 years. So what's the challenge? You said, you know, I should press to that. That was me. That's the challenge. The challenge in London specifically, but of course there are variations on this. Not a lot of facts up on there that you need don't focus too much on it, is this. National programmes, very good at getting people who are reasonably good at finding themselves a job back into a job. And after the 2008 financial collapse, we all thought at the time, this is it. London, financial centre of the planet, we're going to have a terrible time. But London's resilience drove forward job opportunities. What we see more and more is that it's job opportunities for some sorts of Londoners. And the thing that didn't change, so that's the graph going down, unemployment generally, but that issue of people who are stuck, people who aren't in the right place to access the jobs in London is particularly acute here. In the city we're in inner London, 55% of jobs require a university degree or equivalent. But then that's the easy end, if you like, of the problem. There are a whole range of other issues about family structure, about the cost of childcare, about health and the interaction with health that make it especially difficult to get back into the labour market once one is excluded from the labour market. And that's the real challenge we face in London. A driving, high-skill economy in a society that has very complex needs. And we've got to put those two things together. We've got to overcome those two sorts of challenges if we're to be effective. So the programme ahead, I'm going to hand over to people who really don't know how to make this right in a second. I'm just a warm-up act, and they'll give you the real details. But the boxes are, this is the start of a process of a contractual discussion and dialogue that will run through till October, November time when we pop out of OJU and get to a result on what we're taking forward. The resources we're talking about are something like 135 million at most. That's sort of assuming that we keep the DWP on board and extend various bits and things go well and so on. The number of people we're talking about, maybe 54 to 68,000 people that we hope can come through this system and be helped. We're talking about people on ESA with health problems, people who've been very long-term unemployed, people on ESA, and a range of other special groups. We're talking about supporting people into work and supporting people when they're in work. So that's the sort of scope and scale of what we're doing. But what's the underlying strategy? Well, it really revolves around these three things. Investment, innovation, and integration. And the way that we put those together will be absolutely critical to our success over what, again, as long as we do get to extend it to its full range, will be a 5-year programme ending in March 2023, by which time I hope we'll have a whole range of these, because we'll have proven that this sort of localised, bottom-up partnership working is the way that one solves problems. So, invest, innovate, integrate. That's where we have ideas, but we want to co-design and create better solutions with all of you. So together we do something really powerful in our conception over the next few months and in our action and delivery over the next few years. So what does that look like? Well, the first thing to say, of course, is investment. We need to pull in additional investment because, as you all know, the amount of money nationally available for employment programmes has more than halved. It's always surprised me how very little news reporting there's been of the enormous scale of reduction in the money that comes out from central government for this sort of work. But it has, and we need therefore to make every penny count, and we need to use it to leverage other pennies. Now, across on the government, the boroughs, with the mayor, we're certainly looking at, we're building an ESF. Of course, if it's a 5-year programme, there's a question about what happens after Brexit. So we're also looking at that question of where might that money come from. There are a set of issues about the adult education budget, which in another debate with government, we are winning the argument to devolve adult skills to London, coordinated in a different different way, and there must be opportunities there to think about how that funding can be used. And there's a third area we should think about, which is how can we more effectively align, pool, integrate health budgets that are relevant in this same space, as well as, of course, as existing budgets and parts of the spend within the London Borough. So there are a whole set of issues that we need to think about how we leverage and what more we can do over time. That's a discussion that I hope we'll have together. Then in innovation, we're really eager to hear new approaches. We'd like them to be evidence-based, please. There's a long debate on which sort of evidence is most convincing, and in a past life as an academic, I think evidence and theories need to go together to be really, really powerful. But evidence-based, new approaches, an important part of how we conduct the next few months, the procurement dialogue, but actually how we learn over time. Because that's something else that I hope that we will be able to build into the way we run these programs over the next 5 years, which is that we should be able to change as we learn together. And we need contract systems that make that more possible, and I hope that's part of what we're going to be able to make possible within this process. And London is going to be part of the national evaluation of the wider working health programme. And so it's an opportunity for us to take our learning and our success and try and share that and disseminate that across the country. I know that there's a big appetite for that because we've for a long time worked with Greater Manchester, who are also the only other part of the country running their own programme, tailored to focus on their particular needs. And then thirdly, integration. It's really the key to the success that I was referring to at the start of my remarks 5-6 years ago when looking at individual boroughs' work. Because it's that ability to integrate across public services, across social enterprises, that is the real key to driving value and providing people not with a service but with a solution, so that they can move on and take control over their own lives. Too often, many of our older services don't do that, don't think in that more holistic way. So, absolutely at the heart of what we need to achieve is how we link up amongst ourselves to be more effective. And that's why, so one of the things that's led us to is that we, the boroughs, have changed during this process of negotiation with government and thinking through what we're doing. We've argued very strongly for much smaller contract packages than are being applied nationally, because we think that's the sort of scale at which you can get better results. Been a challenge for us as well, because there are 32 boroughs and there are 32 leaders or mayors, and I often, as a humble bureaucrat, sit at the back thinking, it's not quite medieval work really, sometimes, but local autonomy matters. But actually, boroughs have got together and they've formed and built the 4 sub-regional partnerships that we'll be looking at later. Others will show you the maps on their slides, to work more effectively at a more effective scale. And that's an important part of how we've begun our own journey of change. So that's one bit of the box. It helps us fit more effectively with a lot of existing partners. And I hope it will give the sort of scale that works well for you as we get into these discussions. So boroughs operating at sub-regional level will often be the gateway to a lot of the public sector resource that you may want to link up with, and that's an important part of how we think about integration in order to construct strategies that are going to be more effective for people who need most support. And then there's a further level, which is at the London level. We need to be more effective about, or maximise our effectiveness in sharing the learning we get from those 4 sub-regions. And so as we learn, I hope we'll share that learning and improve each other's success rates as we go. So what does that bring us to? Well, those three waltzes, they're the heart of what we're going to develop. I think I'd just end by saying this long process of getting to this point, it's got a wider political story, and I know that there's going to be really quite intense political oversight from borough leaders, from the mayor, because it is the first tangible step towards a different approach to managing public services and governing public services. It's a big step in a devolutionary process, which it seems to me is modernising and bringing forward the way that London runs itself and that London government is accountable to Londoners. And so I'm conscious that there'll be a lot of political oversight. This will be a high-profile project over the next 5 years, and its success will be important not only for what we do together and what we do to support those 60 or 70,000 people who go through the programme, but for the opportunity to expand that into other areas. And that's a really important thing going forward. It's part of this wider process that touches on skills and health and indeed housing, where we're gaining we're seeking greater control for London. But the immediate challenge is that one I started for. We want to develop something really new, something that can give people the opportunity to take back control over their own lives by getting into work and sustaining work. And that's the thing that I hope that we, working together, will be able to do really effectively. And that's why I'm so pleased to see so many of you have come today, and I hope that the rest of this afternoon will be useful to you in thinking through how you can join in this challenge that we face over the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's David Lilliprat. I'm going to talk to you about the commercial approach. So it's all a bit, it's almost most of the tedious stuff, I'm afraid. But before I sort of start on explaining it, walking you through the process, I just want to give a personal perspective on this programme. I was born in London. I've lived virtually my entire life in London. I love London. And I think this gives us a great opportunity to make London an even better place. So that's just my personal passion as to why I want this to be as successful as it can be. So, commercial approach. So one thing you'll notice on this slide is we've got the European Union ESF logo. If we just cover that off to start with, we're going to procure in a ESF compliant manner. We haven't yet got a guarantee of the ESF funding, but we're going through the process to get that funding. And also, I need to give you a bit of background for you, some of you who won't be familiar with sub-regional working in London. There are 4 sub-regions in London. They have a unique, potentially legal framework, which means they can't act as a contracting body. The way it works is that one of the member boroughs acts as the contracting body and runs the procurements. So for this set of procurements, they're all up there. I'm not sure if you can see them like that, but we've got City of London who are procuring on behalf of Central London Forward. Redbridge, who will be the lead accountable body in East London, but the procurement team is from Waltham Forest, and Woodbury is here somewhere. Croydon, again, procuring and accountable body for South London, and Ealing in West London. Procurement starts in the next couple of weeks, and we're looking to get a contract in place by about October, November. So the geographies, for anyone who weren't in Scouts, some of this is a bit obvious. Local London covers the east, which is the bluey-black. We have Central London in the middle of the donut, south, I guess, and and the rather sort of livid purple in the west, which are the West London Authority boroughs. I'm not going to read them all out for you. I think that's not going to be the best use of everybody's time. Just check my notes. So if we move on to the detail of the commercial approach, we're procuring under the light touch regime. We're going to be running this as an occasional joint procurement, principally for the supply questionnaire phase. As you can see, there'll be a single overdue notice issued by City of London, and the reason we've decided to do this is because, as you're probably aware with the supply selection questionnaires, they really are quite standardised now, so rather than having you put in 4 separate supply SSQs, we're just asking for one to cover all 4 lots. When those have been evaluated and a shortlist is in place, we will continue to use City of London's e-procurement portal, but we'll run 4 separate but broadly similar dialogue phases, which are likely, and we haven't fully resolved, but they're likely to be, there won't be a down selection during the dialogue phase. We'll have an opening after a period for us to review your submissions. There'll be a period of dialogue around a number of work streams. They may vary from the sub-regions, but are likely to cover the performance of commercials, legal, integration and supply chain management. We will then sort of give you some time to consider what comes up in the first set of dialogue, and then have a second round of dialogue meetings again on those similar work streams. Assuming that's all fine, we'll close dialogue at that point and issue the invitation to submit final tenders. And in terms of when that's going to happen, we're going to get to the final tenders in September, aiming for a contract award in October, November, though I'm sure everyone who here would have contracted with local authorities before, so you know we're going to have our own internal sign-off processes with the language varies, but for us it's going to be our cabinet that we need to take it to, which introduces some extra delays. But that's the timetable we're going to be working to. So I think questions are going to be taken at the end in the panel. So if there is anything else you'd like to know, just make a note of it and ask again after the break.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Davis. I'm head of policy at Central London Forward. Central London Forward is one of the 4 sub-regional groupings that we were talking about. First and foremost, I'm going to provide a brief overview of what the London Work and Health Programme will look like. After the break, there will be a discussion with members of each of the 4 sub-regions, setting out a little bit more detail about the terms of what their specific programme is going to look like. But I want to try and share some commonalities with the programme and also some differences that you'll need to look out for in due course, both in the discussions we have this afternoon, but also when we issue our procurement documents towards the end of the month. So, in terms of the programme overview, the rationale, as Vic referred to earlier, for devolving employment support is that local commissioners are better able to design and commission employment support that reflects the needs of the local labour market. In designing and commissioning the London Work and Health Programmes, the sub-regions have wanted to produce improved employment outcomes through 3 things. One is better integration of commission support with local services, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in both now but also in the follow-up session after the break. Second, greater investment for unlocking additional funding, of which European Social Fund is one of them. and then C, improved local accountability. In designing our schemes, we work closely both with a wide number of local stakeholders, but also we work closely with the Department of Work and Pensions. Consequently, the London Work and Health Programme will use some of the best bits of the National Work and Health Programme design framework, but will critically be different in a number of ways. Core differences will include, well, one, it is being commissioned and managed by 4 London sub-regions rather than the Department of Work and Pensions. It will therefore create 4 individual London programmes, each with their own distinct local priorities, emphases and specifications that are worth reading through. Second, the local authorities and health services within each sub-region are geared up to play a unique role in integrating their services with the core employment support delivered by the providers who are appointed ultimately. And then third, the programme will be open to local priority groups beyond the core national programme priorities. More details on these distinctions will follow in both the discussions but also the procurement documentation. These are 3 sort of headline things to look out for in distinctions with the DWP national programme. Some key headlines on the programme. So as Dick suggested, the total funding package is estimated to be circa 135 million, including the ESF match, successful applications permitting. The Work and Health Programme will take around 5 years of referrals, but there will be a 21-month payment tail as with the national programme, so it will be roughly about 7 years, with 5 years of referrals within that. And within those 5 years, we're expected to take roughly somewhere between 50 and 55,000 people onto the programme across all 4 sub-regions. Though the size of the sub-regions, the number of referrals and the size of contracts consequently differ quite significantly, and I'll illustrate what that means in a moment. The core client groups will be made up of roughly the equivalent of the DWP scheme, so 50% will be JSA with a health or disability, i.e. predominantly those who have been eligible for work choice, 25% employment support allowance participants in the work-related activity group, and then around 17% of the programme will be job seekers allowance whose claims have reached 2 years in duration, and then 8% for early access groups, which includes a wide range of disadvantaged job seekers. And across each of these, we expect to try and identify our own priority groups across each of the sub-regions to move into these broad categories that we have in front of us. And then ultimately, providers are expected to deliver about 15 months of employment support and health support, and then with at least 6 months of in-work support for participants who find work on the scheme. So those are some generics. There are, as you might expect, because we've been working together quite closely, there are some commonalities across the programme. First, all referrals will be joined by Job Centre Plus work coaches, but all of the sub-regions will support a range of organisations in referring priority groups through Job Centre Plus work coaches. So each sub-region will have their own priority groups that they are keen to push through onto the programme. Each of those will have to go through a Job Centre Plus work coach, but we will be supporting local organisations to help move those people onto the programme and through the schemes. All will look to appoint a provider or multiple providers to deliver core employability support and tackle core employment barriers, including health, but also the range of other barriers that we will be familiar with. Each will be expected to provide a detailed assessment of what these employment barriers are, and also follow up with a detailed action plan that will move them closer to the labour market. Providers will be paid partly on the basis of the service they deliver, so in DWP language a delivery fee, or in London language a service fee, but they will also be paid partly on the basis of how many people they will help to move into, and of course critically remaining work, so the performance-related payments element of the programme. Performance-related payments, I think nearly all of these will be validated by HMRC earnings data, and we expect this to be worth at least 50% of contract values across each of the sub-regions. So those are the core similarities, and there are many, many more the sub-regional specifications that are due to be launched. But there are some distinctions that will come out this afternoon that I think are probably worth looking out for. Though I would very much discourage a skim read of the specifications in any case. Critically, these are 4 different programmes. They have common cores, but they are 4 different programmes. Bidders will therefore need to read the specifications closely to understand what these distinctions are. But to help this process along, you should look out for some of the following differences. 1, their size. Geographically, yes, but also the referral volumes and the estimated contract values are quite different. Secondly, while we have been working closely together, our delivery expectations and our priorities for programmes are different, and therefore the types of outcomes that each of the sub-regions want to see through the programme, not just in terms of volume, but also in terms of which particular outcomes they want to prioritise, are different. And as a result, because you want to try and produce different outcomes, you also want to create different incentives. And as a consequence of that, there are different payment models too, which each place a different emphasis on suppliers achieving different outcomes. And they will pay for, and they will weight, critically they will weight these payments accordingly to these preferences. Fourth, while all have core features of integration with local services, how that integration works out in practice is very, very different in different places, as you would expect. It will depend on the availability of support in the local area, it will depend on the gaps that have been identified in the local area, and it will also depend on the priorities of those boroughs who are participating in, but also the health services that are participating in this integration process. So therefore it is worth looking out for the nuances in the different contract package areas. And then, as I said, each area will have different priorities for additional referrals to the programme. One of the key reasons for trying to get ESF money to support this programme is so we can have more people onto the programme. But we don't just want the same, we want more different people on the programme too, that would ordinarily get support through this scheme. And then finally, before we break, one of the important things, the contract package values and the total number of referrals by different area. So, just as a sort of note, and it says this on the slide too, the other values of both columns will depend on whether the DWP extend the national programme. If the Department for Work and Pensions extend the national programme, we will also extend the London programme by a further 2 years, we think, at this rate. So it's worth putting your attention mainly to the values on the left, which are the estimated lower bound of contract values. So in central London, this will be around 52 million, local London 38, South London Partnership 14 million, and West London Alliance 27 million. And the referral volumes, as you can see, are corresponding to the size of the programme. So that's roughly what the programme will look like as a brief overview. After the break, we'll be exploring the detailed design and specifications as far as possible with each of the sub-regions, and then we'll have some questions and answer panel following that. But before I stop, this is mainly for the people watching online. We will have a break now, and the live feed will stop, and it will return when we get back. Great, thank you very much.
We're running ahead of schedule, so I will let you know when the break is over. Stop this. Swipe down, swap.